Thank you for joining us for another episode of Consumer Trial Lawyer Academy. When we last spoke, we were talking about basically a run-through of how to present your evidence during trial. And in this episode, I want to talk about a couple of more specific topics. First, I want to deal with the issue of what we call friends and family witnesses. And first of all, what are friends and family witnesses? When you're representing consumers in civil litigation, they've had their lives wrecked by the corporate wrongdoer. You have finally gotten them into the courtroom. Your friends and family witnesses are those people who have observed the impact of the defendant's conduct on your client. In other words, they can testify to how your client's now different based on what's happened to them and based on what the defendant's actions have caused as far as harm to your client. Friends and family witnesses, when you're dealing with, adults, typically their children, their closest friends, their Bible study buddy, their coffee club, their book club, their next door neighbor, their best girlfriend, their best guy friend, that sort of thing. And these people understand, they typically don't testify for long. When we put these witnesses up for depositions, you're talking about people who typically testify for, 30 minutes to an hour tops in a deposition. But at trial, there are people who come in and testify typically for 5 minutes to 20 minutes tops. And you have to remember that these people, for your case, they serve a couple of functions. First of all, they act as sort of the suspenders to a belt and suspenders approach to the damages that your clients have actually experienced. Your clients are going to testify about the nightmare that they lived through, and that's fine, and it's always powerful. But in some ways, in some courts, that's not enough in and of itself. And so having good friends and family witnesses will make sure that your case has the support and the corroboration that it needs to sustain the jury's verdict. And these friends and family witnesses, although they don't testify for long, they powerfully corroborate what your client has lived through by explaining the harm from their point of view. And typically, even though these witnesses are often the shortest witnesses in a trial, they're often the most powerful testimony because it is an independent source that is unbiased, who has seen how your client has been harmed and how they've been damaged based on what's transpired. And these folks, besides arming the jury with the additional proof that they need to sustain whatever verdict that you've asked for in the case, they also give the court at trial strong evidence to defeat any argument that your client's injuries are superficial, made up, minor, trivial, insignificant, not quote-unquote concrete. And oftentimes their perspective is incredibly valuable at creating the scenario where the compensatory damages portion of your case can get into the range that it needs to be in for your client to get a full measure of justice in front of the jury. So by using those people, what you're doing in effect is providing powerful, compact evidence that will create the right environment for proper outcome. And these witnesses are almost always unimpeachable from the perspective of the defense. if it's adult children, if it's, next door neighbors, if it's, the friend from work, the friend from, study book, book club or whatever, if it's the confidant, if it's the lifelong buddy, whomever it is, that perspective is unique and it is their own, and it is in essence an unimpeachable opinion and observation of what your client has gone through. And when it corroborates your client's own story, then it becomes, an overwhelming force. And generally, these witnesses are not going to be subject to any form of easy attack by a defendant because, my old saying, they just don't have a dog in the fight. They're there because they've been compelled to be there, and they're there because, they're required to come, not because they're seeking to actively intervene. And oftentimes, jurors will take that third party who's known your client for a long time, and they'll give great weight to the idea that that third party will have a unique and independent perspective that will give you what you need to be successful and to move your case forward. So that's always a great place to be. Now, friends and family witnesses, I say in all instances over disclose. If you have, 15 potential witnesses, you can always disclose those at the beginning. And, if for some reason you decide to only use 2 or 3 of them at trial, well, that's okay. The idea usually there is just to make sure that you talk to the defense and let them know that you have all these witnesses and make sure they're disclosed early, give them proper opportunity to depose them, and then let them know that, you may not use every one of them at trial because you don't want to get into a cumulative thing. But at the end of the day, you're going to use some of them. And then that way they can go depose them all and hear what they have to say. It will strengthen your hand if there is a chance of settling your case. But if there's not a chance of settling your case, then the other thing that it will do is it will definitely give you choices as to who you choose to use at trial based on exactly where you're expecting the evidence to go as you're getting ready. So, friends and family witnesses, beautiful, powerful tool that defense really can't deal with, and they really have no rebuttal for. And most often, their best move would be to ask them nothing, thank them for their time for coming out to trial, let them get off the stand. But to the extent that they ask them any questions, it's always going to work in your favor because a lot of times what they will do is cause that witness to elaborate on something that you might not have even picked up on, or they might call attention to a point that the witness can really hammer home that you may not have really even thought was that important. But I've never seen any defense lawyer ask questions of a friends and family witness that improved their position. It invariably hurts them 1,000,000%. And, but, most of the time, our good friends on the other side of the case can't help themselves, and they feel like they have to do that. And when they do, then of course it comes back and bites them pretty hard. So, identifying friends and family witnesses early on, interviewing friends and family witnesses early on, getting them disclosed, getting them deposed, and then using them properly at trial. Always a wonderful strategy to strengthen your case, to pile up evidence in your favor, to confirm damage, and to boost the evidence to support whatever jury award ultimately comes in your case. Remembering, that not only do you have to win the trial, but you have to win the appeal as well. So never miss the opportunity to, get that evidence in there. And the other thing that's great about friends and family witnesses is they take the pressure off of your client to, quote unquote, win the case when they're on the stand. Your client can tell their story. They don't have to be on the stand forever. When they talk about the harm they've suffered, they don't have to get up and sound like they're whining to tell this lengthy, huge story. You have friends and family witnesses that you can put all around your client's testimony, both before and after, if necessary, to make sure that you have others who can talk about the devastation, and you can leave your client talking about how they've tried to fight through what they faced and how they've tried to overcome it. And so you leave it more in the mode of your client's putting on the brave face and fighting through and trying to overcome, instead of your client sounds like a whiny so-and-so and they're just not very likable. You can leave the image of a hero fighting through difficulties no matter what the struggle, and then you can have the friends and family talk about the severity of the wounds and the difficulty of the fight, rather than having your own client talk about that. And I think that makes your client more attractive and more sympathetic, and makes the jury root for them in their fight, and be more willing to give them full justice than if you try to put the entire burden of explaining everything they've been through on your client, which at some point becomes a scenario where your client starts to sound like, they're, in some instances, it can even get to the point where people think they're whining, and that's definitely something you've got to avoid. You want it to be, I'm fighting through, I'm overcoming, I'm doing all I can, even if they're a quadriplegic and they come into the courtroom on a hospital bed. You want the friends and family to talk about the devastation of the injuries, not the clients who are fighting to get over and get their life back. So that's the general plan with friends and family witnesses. Always make sure you have some to, at the very least, have them come after your client, so that you don't have to have your client be the last person to testify, because friends and family witnesses should always be easy wins for you and positive witnesses at trial. So you definitely want to make sure that you're ending with one or two of those folks who can bookend your case and have the jury focused on the degree of harm your client has experienced, rather than leaving them with the idea that your client's the last person they heard from, and your client came across as whiny or unsympathetic. So keep that in mind as you use those witnesses. Think about those strategies, and think about the order of those witnesses at trial, even as you're disclosing them and talking with them and putting them up for deposition. Think about who your anchor person is going to be as a witness, and think about getting 1 to 3 of those to go in behind your own client or clients, to be there to focus the jury on the degree of harm without forcing your client to grovel in front of the jury. So that's sort of the philosophy on friends and family witnesses. Keep that in mind as you're dealing with them. Identifying them and addressing them will make your cases go better. It'll make your trial stronger. It'll give you extra evidence to support your injuries and your verdicts, and it will provide almost irrefutable evidence of injury that you can always point back to, not only in your closing arguments, but in your post-trial motions and your appellate work, to sustain your verdicts. Thanks for taking the time to visit with us today and listen to this video. And we'll have some others, and we'll continue to work through the materials that we talked about to walk you all the way through the process of trying your case. And we'll also be working on some specific videos to highlight even more details on some of the areas within these topics. Thanks again for watching us at Consumer Trial Lawyer Academy. Hope this helps you do a better job with your case, gives you confidence to represent your clients, and look forward to helping you with other topics. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. And we are at Consumer Trial Lawyer Academy. Thanks again for your time today.